Welcome to Rooster Radio, a broadcast dedicated to supporting and promoting local artists in the Gaston County and surrounding areas.
This episode of Rooster Radio is brought to you by Liquid Death. Murder your thirst. You know, one of my favorite things about partnering with Liquid Death here at the Rooster is a lot of people will come in and ask for water, and I hand them this can of Liquid Death, and I get that same look. Everyone looks at me like, I asked for water. I'm like, that is water. And it's funny because a lot of times the older crowd will be like, no, I want some water, please. I'm like, yeah. It is water.
It's good.
It's good water. Yeah, it's really good.
This past Friday was the first time I actually tried it, and my buddy that came with me, he's been wanting to try it too. So that's why he really likes sparkling water. So he really liked the sparkling. Yeah, he's actually going to talk to his boss at the shop that he works at about trying to get it in there.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, the sparkling is great, man. We carry 2 of their 3 flavored sparklings. They've got
flavored ones too?
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Yeah, they've got lime, severed lime. And then they've got wild berry flavor. And I like both of them. They also have a mango flavor, but we don't carry that here. It doesn't really move. But yeah, we've got the sparkling, the lime, and the berry, and then the plain water. And we sell a lot of it too. I mean, it's really good stuff. It's quality product. And we partner with them because it kind of fits what we do. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We're a music venue. We do a lot of rock and roll stuff. Liquid Death,
And you've got that bucket deal for 14. That's a good deal too.
That's true. We when we did the partnership with Liquid Death, what we did was we agreed to carry or keep some things on our menu that featured Liquid Death product. So one of those specials is the Death Bucket. You can get a Death Bucket. It's 4 domestic beers and 2 waters for $14. Our domestic beers are $4 a piece, so you're already saving $2 on 4 beers, and you're getting 2 free waters. Yeah. It's a great deal.
It's a great deal, and it kind of helps you keep responsible too with drinking. Because I mean, at some point in the night, you're going to be driving back home, and you need to do so safely.
That's correct, and that's one of the things that I like about the Death Bucket Special is, you know, if you're going to be drinking domestic beer, drink some water, stay hydrated. You know, it's great, and that's the other cool thing about Liquid Death is when you're at a show and you are drinking and you take a break between drinks to drink a Liquid Death. You're holding this can that looks cool, like it doesn't feel like a little flimsy bottle of water. Yeah. You know, it's cool. Liquid Death is cool what they do, and I couldn't be prouder to be partnered with them here at the Rooster. So next time you're here and you're thirsty, ask for a Liquid Death. We'll get one for you. So thank you for being here on a Sunday. I know Sundays are kind of hard for people and stuff, but I appreciate you being here.
No problem. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So welcome to the show, Mollie.
Thank you.
We're talking with Mollie of Hope United Survivors Network. Now she is the Special Events and Marketing Coordinator for Hope United, and Hope United is a local nonprofit dedicated to preventing and helping folks who are victims of domestic violence. Is that accurate?
That is correct. So, and not just domestic violence, but sexual assault, human trafficking, elder abuse, and then through some of our other programs under the same umbrella, child abuse through the Lighthouse. So.
Now, Hope United is not a government entity. It is a government entity.
It's partly, yeah. So it is part of Gaston County government.
So that's how you're funded through the county budget?
Through the county funds, grants, and donations. So we're kind of an anomaly, but our shelter has been around for 41 years this April, and started out as a government kind of under DSS. And then we have slowly but surely grown the programs, including Hope United.
Well, I think we should, this is a great place to start with the shelter. We should probably give credit where it's due, and some of the people watching may already be aware, for decades, the shelter was run by Miss Kathy Cloninger.
Yes.
And now it is named after Kathy Cloninger because of her lifelong dedication to helping victims and people in the need in this demographic.
Yes.
And because of her hard work and because of Ms. Cloninger's involvement in the community, it was able to become the anomaly that it is and become adopted by the county government to provide these resources for people. So we are in a unique situation in such a small town, such a small community, to have these resources, because a lot of communities do not have this level of dedication to these issues. Correct?
Yes, absolutely. So, and Kathy definitely paved the way for a lot of the work that's being done today. I mean, I think the shelter started in April of 1982.
She's not that old.
No, sorry. I mean, just been chugging along ever since. And like I said, truly paving the way, making the shelter visible for those who might need it. And then definitely getting the support of the community to last for 41 years. I mean, that's amazing. So,
well, let's talk about I'll tell you what, before I do that, let's talk about some statistics, because I think that's I think people probably aren't aware of some of the, when we talked previously, this relationship began with our Christmas show. Excuse me. We did a toy drive for the shelter for our Christmas party here at the Rooster. And while we were planning that, you and I had some conversations, and one day you were rattling off these statistics, and I was just floored, not only by like the depth of your knowledge of the situation, but just how, I can't think of a good word to use other than how bad it can get for some people. So one of the things that really stood out to me was you said typically a victim of domestic violence will leave their lover or their partner how many times before it's over?
An average of 7 times.
7 times. A person will leave 7 times before they finally decide that they've had enough. Now, put that in perspective. That means a lot of people leave after the first time. So some people are willing to take dozens of instances of abuse before they finally break that tie. And dig in a little bit there. Why is that? Why is it so hard for people to escape that situation?
I think it's multifaceted. So one of the biggest things that we look at when we're talking about domestic violence, and one of the biggest tactics or the most utilized tactics that an abuser will use is isolation. So I don't know about you, but if I was in a relationship that was bad for me, I can think of probably 10 people off the top of my head that would say, Mollie, what are you doing? But what an abuser will do is start to say something like, Mollie, your mom's always calling. She's always in her business. How are we going to make this relationship work if I'm, if I don't get enough alone time with you? So slowly but surely, I will start to kind of push my mom away. And then they might say, oh, Mollie, stop hanging out at Michael's, at the Rooster. He makes you look bad, or she makes you look bad. And then slowly but surely, I'm going to probably distance myself from you, who may be somebody who would stand up and say, Mollie, you got to get out of here, right? And so that isolation is a big thing, because if I was going to leave my house today and never go back with my son, let's just say I was never going to go back, the amount of resources that it would take and the people that I would need supporting me to be successful is probably more than any of us can imagine. So it's
more than many of us have.
Exactly, yeah. I would need somewhere to stay. I would need a car to drive. I would need my job to be aware so that I was safe there. The other piece of it is the 2 weeks after someone leaves a domestic violence situation, they are 70 times more likely to die of a homicide. So in a lot of ways, it may be safer in someone's mind. I can see what's coming when I'm in the house with this person, but if I am at a hotel or I'm at my mom's house, I might not feel as safe. So it could be, I'm going back because I can tell when it's coming. I think I can see all of the red flags, and I know what sets him or her off. But if I'm out of that relationship or I'm out of that environment, I might feel like I have no way of knowing what's coming.
Yeah, and the gradual isolation is, I mean, it's absolutely manipulation by the abuser. And I know for some people, it's really hard to pick up on those signs when you're falling in love with someone.
Yes.
You know, I know people that are in love with falling in love, you know, but then there's people who, you know, you may find yourself in your late 20s, early 30s with a child, and you're scratching and clawing to survive, and some person comes along that just makes you feel wonderful, and they're offering resources and they're helping, and you know, the next once you get comfortable in that situation, bam, that's when you get hit with the abuse, and these people are really, really good at it. You know, abusers are really good at manipulating people.
Yes. And
it's really hard to see the signs when you're so overwhelmed with the love and the emotion and the adoration that you're getting. And so, you know, there's a discipline that you have to have as a human being to not get so head over heels that you miss the red flags.
Yeah, and that's one of my, passion project things here in Gaston County is talking to young people about, you know, I get asked all the time, how do I prevent myself from ever being in a relationship like this? And it's not a matter of resources, smarts, money, friends, none of that matters. It is about setting healthy boundaries, about knowing what a healthy relationship is. It can happen to anyone, anywhere. And unfortunately, women and girls between the ages of 16 and 24 are at the most
susceptible.
So, and I mean, you think about it, I really didn't know what I was doing between those ages. I mean, I wasn't necessarily a great judge of character. I didn't have my life together. I was barely able to take care of myself. So I can't imagine literally swimming upstream every day to keep myself and my children alive. And I think that sometimes what we ask of survivors is almost the impossible. And that's kind of when Hope United became, and I have to kind of do it with my hands because Hope United is kind of just survivor services in Gaston County. So it's the umbrella that houses the shelter, the Child Advocacy Center, and the Family Justice Center. So the main goal for us is to identify what are those barriers, why are people staying. If we can make it an average of 5 times of leaving instead of 7 in Gaston County and keep people safe, identifying those gaps in services. And I think that we've done a really good job of doing that. I think the county has been really supportive. I think the community has been incredibly supportive, just like through what we did this Christmas, which was amazing. We have been able to, I think, start to scratch the surface of what does that look like.
So, you've got all these services available, and also we keep some of your cards behind the bar. No one's asked for them yet, but if you are at the Rooster and you're in a situation like this, or you know someone else that's in a situation like this, we have information cards behind the bar to get in contact with you, which leads me to the next question is, how does one go about, attaining the help of your organization, and what are the steps? What does that process look like? And, how does that typically play itself out?
So the shelter houses men, women, and children who are fleeing domestic violence, who are ready to leave and kind of meet that window, kind of small scope of what is.
They need that temporary situation to get to the next step because there's nowhere else to go.
Correct.
Which leads me to another question, somewhat off topic, but if you're allowed to say, how many people can you house in the shelter at one time?
So it used to be pre-COVID, it was about 32 to 35 people. So that's women and children. We are able to house men. But right now, I would say around probably 16 to 20, depending on family makeup. And then because of COVID, I guess one good thing that has come out of it is that we have been able to utilize hotels. So if someone is fleeing domestic violence and let's say they have a pet, because that's a huge, I mean, that's a whole nother episode, but the correlation between those who abuse animals and those who abuse their partner is strong. So we know that people don't want to leave their pets behind, but the shelter isn't necessarily somewhere where you could bring 8 dogs. So we do have an MOU with a local hotel, so we can house folks who have their pets. And then if there's someone who calls and we don't have space, we're not going to say, oh, sorry, try to find somewhere else. Let us know how it works out. That's never going to be that's never going to be our answer. So we can utilize hotels. And you've met Tara, our director, and we have nicknamed her Wile E. Coyote because you call her with a problem, she's going to figure it out. Like, she's never going to be like, oh, that sounds like something outside of our wheelhouse. I mean, we have gotten very creative with how we can help people. It's just incredible the lengths that she'll go to make sure that people get what they want, because at the end of the day, we are totally survivor driven. And none of our services, even shelter, are contingent upon someone leaving their partner. So,
what percentage of people would you say come to you guys for help and end up going back?
I wish I had that number, but it would be like a self-identifying, and most of the time if someone leaves and goes back to their partner, they don't reach back out to us until another incident has occurred. And there's a lot of shame in that, and I think that plays into that 7 times of going back, because you do feel shame about it, and you shouldn't.
No, absolutely. No, ultimately what you've done is you've put yourself in an extremely unfortunate situation, and it starts to, I'm trying to keep it clean, it starts to mess with your self-confidence, your sense of pride and all that. So no, I get that 100%. But the truth is, when you find yourself in a situation, the sooner you figure out a way to get out of it, the better off you'll be, and the more time you'll have to heal.
Yeah.
Because that healing process can end up taking an entire lifetime if you stick around too long.
Absolutely. And that's with Hope United and the Family Justice Center being here now. We are now able to help people who are 10 years out of a relationship, but they've never dealt with it. They haven't had the counseling resources, or now it's starting to come up in other ways, or they just kind of want somebody to talk to. All of our services through the Family Justice Center can be accessed by those who are lifetime survivors. So it could be something that happened when you were a teen, and you can call us and we can put services in place that way. So,
and I'm assuming it's all confidential.
100% confidential. All of our services are free. The model behind the Family Justice Center is we had an intern at the shelter, I think it was probably 2018, and we said, okay, here's your trauma history. This is what we're giving you, a story about what happened. Here's some bus passes. You've got 2 kids. They get out of school at 2:30. You have to be back here to pick them up from the shelter on the school bus at 2:30. So we want you to go and put all the services in place that we ask a survivor to put in place. So that means going to DSS. That means going to the sheriff's office to get a 50B, going to the courthouse to appear in front of a judge, going to legal aid to get all of those different places. And it took 19 hours and 31 bus stops. And she said, y'all, this is hard. I can't do it.
It's nearly, like you said, it's nearly impossible. I think we should let people know what a 50B is. A 50B is a court-ordered protective, restraining order, basically. It's, if you've got a child, and that's really only issued for people with children, correct?
Any is an intimate partner. So you don't necessarily have to have children, but it is that, like, true domestic violence. And there are other, like, 50Cs and things like that for non-intimate partner restraining orders, but that's not so much our wheelhouse. But I will say the model now is, instead of going to all of those places, someone only has to come to the Family Justice Center, which is right down here on Franklin. And we pull in the people that you tell us to. So if you need to go to the doctor because something happened, we'll take you and we'll figure out a way to pay for it. If you, need to get a protective order, we'll go with you to court. if you need to go to DSS, we can have DSS come to you. And then we also now, with a partnership with the Sheriff's Office, who does the 50Bs, we have a space in the courthouse in courtroom 2C where someone can go, if they want a protective order, they can meet with our clinician there and kind of debrief or kind of get ready for court. We have childcare that's provided in there. It's just a survivor suite where people can go and you don't have to necessarily hang out in the hallway with your abuser. You have an advocate that will walk with you to the courtroom.
There's emotional support, you know, all of the things that you need to kind of push through the situation.
Yes, because that's a cumbersome process. I mean, that is I work in it every day, and I'll sit in court and I'll go, I have no idea what's going on, you know. And so somebody being like, okay, this is what the judge is going to ask you. Here's where we'll go after is like
mentally preparing,
Yeah.
you know, to walk through the motions, and then even still, you can be, you know, blindsided by something. You said, you know, you just said you're in it every day. What do you do to keep yourself from getting jaded? Because you hear stories all the time about police officers, you know, God bless them, you know, you wouldn't think that someone that does what I do for a living would be as supportive of police as I am. And I wasn't always, you know, I was not always an advocate. I was an adversary for many years of the police department. However, I have learned the value of these systems that are in place. Now, are there bad apples? Of course there are. There's bad apples in every industry in the world. There's always bad actors, and there's people that suck at their job. That happens everywhere.
Yeah.
But you hear stories a lot about how, you know, police spend the majority of every working day of their life surrounded by the worst of us, right? Meth heads, burglars, you know, rapists, domestic violence abusers. That's their day-to-day life, is dealing with those people. And I could see where over a long period of time, you can get real jaded and you kind of can lose your faith in humanity, and you get real cynical. What do you do to keep from getting cynical and to keep from hating men?
Well, I think, I don't know. I haven't thought about it, but this is what just came to mind. I think for law enforcement, they work very much in the black and white, right? And we operate almost exclusively in the gray area. So it's never my job to figure out whether or not you're telling me the truth. If you said what happened, my only role is to be there for you and put things in place. Does it break my heart when people go back to their abusers? Absolutely. But that's on me and not on them. So I think because our job is never punitive, it's never, it's to be there all the time. And understanding like why people go back. I mean, these abusers are, or how people get in the situation. I've been in terrible relationships. I've known some real gems, but they're not all bad. They're never all bad. So sitting with somebody in my office and they're telling me all of the terrible things, they're also peppering in all the reasons why they love them. Maybe they're a great dad. And I think knowing that two things can be true at the same time. Someone can be an abuser, and someone could also, you know, be a loving partner at times, or make someone feel loved, is important in understanding the work.
It's a great point to make. I think that fact that two things can be true at the same time gets lost on a lot of people.
Yeah.
Doesn't justify the bad behavior.
Absolutely not.
But those things, hearing the stories of love, even though they're coming from this awful situation, kind of helps keep your faith in humanity, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and I mean, I think our leadership, the county leadership down, even the work that Kathy has done for years, is inspiring, and I want to be part of it. And
that's awesome.
I just think that we can do better every day, and when, you know, it doesn't mean that yesterday we were wrong. It just means that there's another opportunity to help. Well,
you learn that, you know, like I said earlier, you get blindsided a lot by, you know, things you don't see coming, and you know, the best thing we can do is prepare ourselves for the worst, and you know, you're always going to catch surprises. Let me ask you this. you said earlier that you do have men housed at the shelter. Now, from my perspective, when it's just a fact that more women are abused than men in relationships. But
It's
men
a gender-based crime.
Yeah, men are abused in relationships. Now, I would imagine that if you've got a house that's mainly females with their kids that are being abused, and you bring a man into that house or into that facility, even though he's the one being abused in a relationship, that's got to have some sort of triggering effect for some women. So how do you manage that, and how does that play itself out?
So it's rare that we have housed a man in the shelter because of that. Would we? 100%. And because of the layout of the shelter, and I'll tell you this is just kind of anecdotal, but the way the shelter is laid out, men would have a separate area with their children, and depending on the kind of house dynamics and what we think what could be triggered, and how, I think for a lot of the kids, just to hear a man's voice might kind of make them tense up. So it would be the job kind of the case manager and the clinician there at the shelter to talk to them and see everybody's comfortability level and have a very honest conversation with them before we would bring someone in.
So there might be times where you've got women in the house that it won't affect quite as much as it will the group of women you have in 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Maybe that group of women's, no, this guy needs to go to a hotel.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on who's already there and that kind of thing.
And the one I'm thinking about, it was an older gentleman with his children, and it really I'm sure he was like, get me out of here, because he was just kind of mothered a lot. Like, the women would be like, okay, this is how we're going to dress, your daughter today, and this is what we're going to fix. I mean, it's kind of what you would imagine, and he was just, he was such a good sport about it, and I think it was good for that group of individuals who were in the shelter to kind of have that relationship, because it was a healthy male in the house,
which is something they're not used to seeing. So, and in a way, it's actually helps with the healing process and the getting through process to see that there are men that aren't like the men that they've chosen their whole life or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. But we do try to be very cognizant of the fact that even when there's an air filter that needs to be changed and we have to have a man come and do it, we'll try to talk to the ladies and give them a heads up, like, this is what, I mean, if there was a random man walking through my house, I would be concerned too. So we try to give them that same level of respect, and say, hey, they're going to be working on the air filter on Tuesday, so there you may see a man walking down the hallway. We want them to feel safe, because that's kind of the first step in starting that healing journey. But I will say most of the time, men also want to be in a hotel for their own privacy, but the shelter is set up to potentially house males. But
is it even possible to get statistical data on like what percentage of men that are in abusive relationships will seek? Like, I would imagine, just because of your generalized stereotypical man, it might be harder for a guy to come forward 100%. Than it is for women. We live in a day and age where saying shit like that can get you in trouble, but the truth is, men are more masculine and stuff, and you're not going to. At least from my perspective, the people I knew and grew up with, if they're being abused by their spouse, it's less likely they're going to seek out this kind of help than it would be for a woman. Is there any statistical data on men versus women in terms of seeking out help and getting out of those relationships?
So 1 in 3 women will report being severely abused. So that could be physical,
sexual, that, yeah.
And then it's gone from 1 in 10 to about 1 in 8 men will report it. Now, I don't know how many. I know that the county as a whole had over 6,000 911 calls last year that were domestic violence related, and I'm not exactly
6,000 DV calls in Gaston County last year. Yeah. God, how many is that a day? What was that, 20 a day?
It's a lot.
It's got to be close to 20 or 15, 20 a day. not great with math, but good
Yeah, me
Lord.
neither. And I should have pulled the exact number, but it was over 6,000 calls. And that could have been family violence as well. It could have been come in as a report of domestic violence, and really it could have been a neighbor and a neighbor. Or it could have been an adult child and a parent, or two adult children. But we served last year, I would have to pull it up, but at the shelter, I think we housed about 380 people, and had over 1,000 people call us at Hope United. So we can serve people in their home there, with with the Family Justice Center. So men are reporting more, but I think for so long too, we called these resources battered women's resources.
Yeah.
And so I think looking at it, a man is probably saying, "Oh, well, that's not for me." So part of what the work that we probably need to do, and I think what we have been doing, is letting people know that these resources are here for anyone. It doesn't matter where you've been, where you're coming from, what you look like. None of that matters. As long as you are saying, "I want help," we're going to be there. So.
This might not even be a question for you, but I'm curious, do you know, are there resources for abusive people to help you? I doubt that it's going to come through your organization, but do you have ways for people who are abusive to get help to not be abusive going forward? Because I would imagine, from everything I've learned in life, typically hurt people. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, if you're an abusive person, chances are you were abused in some way, shape, or form, and this is how it's manifested itself. Mm-hmm. Where can people find resources? Maybe you're one of those people. Maybe you're manipulative. Maybe you're on the verge of becoming abusive, and you're cognizant of it, mm-hmm. and you don't want to be that. Where can those people go to get help?
So unfortunately, there's not a lot of resources out there. I think, or there are not a lot of resources. There is a program called a Batters Intervention Program, and I think the one that serves our area is called Impact. I'm not 100% sure what their criteria is, but I know it's a very intense program. And while offender accountability isn't our wheelhouse, that's, we are there to serve the survivors, and I think we do a great job of it. We can't ignore the fact that we see the same, a lot of times, man's name come across our desk with a different woman or a different victim, and there has to be something. We have to be able to hold those people accountable. So our new district attorney here in Gaston County, in partnership with Hope United, has launched, it's a program called the Danger Assessment for Law Enforcement, or we call it the DALE for short, but it's a lethality assessment that first responders, a lot of times law enforcement, so on those 6,000 calls, they would ask the victim in that situation a list of, I think it's 11 questions, and it would screen out the highest risk offenders. Mm-hmm. So it's evidence-based, and they say about 30% of those people who are administered the test to will screen out. So what that does is, whether the crime occurs in Bessemer City or Belmont, that Dale will go to the district attorney's office before first appearance, and they can request a higher bond or higher bail for those folks. So it gives us on the back end time to wrap services around that victim. Because if you get a $5,000 bond over here and a $500,000 bond over here for the same crime, we got to get to this person a lot faster.
You have to prioritize. I understand.
So our hope is that it will identify those in our community that are at the most risk of not only hurting their intimate partner, but they are also, because of what we know about strangulation, which is one of the questions, those are the people that would walk into Pulse nightclub and open fire on someone, go into an airport and open fire just haphazardly at anyone that is there, and then it really is like a community safety thing. So holding those offenders accountable and making sure that we have if we know better, we do better. And if these types of things, if it's predictable based on these statistics, then it should be preventable.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that we're applying what we know. And so that's
the reason I bring that up is because, you know, what we do here comes from a place of love, and you know, nothing's perfect, nobody's perfect, and I just want, you know, the name of your organization is Hope United, and I just want to put some hope out there that maybe someone watching this is in a similar situation. It's like, hey, there's resources for you, and for the abusers too. You know you're doing wrong. Mm-hmm. You know what you're doing is bad. You can make it better. You don't have to harbor all that hate. You know, there's ways to deal with it. So that's why I bring it up. I want everyone to be happy. You know what I mean? I'm just in general. But the reality is there are some really nasty people out there who do some really nasty things, and they do need to have consequences for their actions. I don't want to come off like I'm, you know, letting anyone off the hook either. Yeah. I'm just saying, you know, you fucked up. You can still have, you know, move on with your life and do better. And with that, I want to say thank you for coming in today to spread this information. Hopefully somebody sitting at home watching this is inspired to get out of an abusive situation, or you know someone in one, and now you know how to deal with it. And again, you know, if you know someone being abused, there's only so much you can do. It's ultimately up to them to make a decision to make their life better. But if you love somebody and they're your friend, then it's still your responsibility as their friend to let them know that these resources are available. Mm-hmm. So if you want to kind of put a bow on it and tell everybody, you know, give them the rundown, tell them where to look, tell them how to find you, and we'll get out of here.
Okay. All right. So you can find Hope United and all of our resources at www.hopeunitedgaston.com. All of our programs, the Lighthouse, the Kathy Mabry Cloninger Center, and Hope United Survivor Network are all on Facebook. That's a great way to keep in touch. Our crisis line, which is 704-852-6000, is answered 24/7 by a live human being. So even if you're not ready to get help, but you want to talk to somebody about what that might look like, you can call, you can get a live human, we can play the what if game with you, we can safety plan, all of those types of things. So if for some reason you think that you may need our resources, all of those ways are great ways to reach out, and we'll be here for you. Hope is here.
Awesome. And again, and if you come to the Rooster, we have informational cards behind the bar. So if you or someone you know needs these services, just come. I'm here every day. Just tell me discreetly, whatever. You know, this is all. Their services can remain confidential. They'll get you the help you need. So one last time, thank you so much, Mollie, for coming in today and sharing this information. Hopefully you learned something today. And peace and love.